All right, what's up, guys? We're going to talk about how do you strike your irons pure and what are the things that are robbing you of inconsistency. So I look at it mainly three different sections of the golf swing that I see with most of my clients that causes all their inconsistencies, with mainly contact and then controlling this club face. Because if you can't control the club face, meaning that if it's open, closed, you're hitting it high on the face, low on the face, high on the face, toe, heel, you're gonna have a hard time hitting greens, you're gonna have a hard time scoring. So what I wanna do is teach you how to fix some of those most common areas in the golf swing that cause the most inconsistencies. So let's dive into what those are. So number one is, let's talk about the takeaway, because I think the takeaway can get pretty confusing on what's the right thing to do. I don't necessarily think there's one way to do it, but I do think there are some most common errors that I see. Most common error that I see is, instead of taking the club back and creating width like this, I see this right elbow break really soon into the backswing. So it breaks, and then not only that, but they roll the face open. So what happens is they break this elbow, and then the face opens wide open. Well, if we open the face in the backswing, we're gonna have to do something to time it back on the downswing. So I think it's best for pretty much everybody working to build their golf swing, especially if you're really inconsistent. Let's start with a square face on the backswing. Now, if you're a slicer of the golf ball, you definitely want to be square, maybe even slightly closed to kind of give you that edge to help stop the ball missing right. Now, if you're missing it left, meaning you have probably a flip hook release, square is probably perfect for you. So what does that look like? Well, what we want is we want to create that width, so we have to turn the chest more, keep this arm straighter longer like this, okay? Instead of letting it fold, we're getting that extension, right? So we're gonna create that extension, that width between the hands and the hips right there. All right, create that width. And then from here, we wanna make sure the hands stay stacked a little bit longer this way. People that roll the face open, the hands turn this way like this. They turn open, which then if you watch that, if I turn it open, you can see the face opening on the backswing. That means we have to do something on the downswing to square it up, and that's gonna make it really hard to time, because now you just created a timing motion within your backswing. So here we go again. So keeping your hands more stacked and then making sure that face is aiming towards the ground, because look at this. If the toe is straight up and down right here, you can see that it's square, right? This edge right here is square with my spine. If I turn this way, it's still square with my spine. So the only difference is I'm leaned over. So what does that mean? On the backswing, this line needs to be matching my spine facing down. So if you can create a backswing that doesn't roll it open, that doesn't get the club way behind you back here, it stays more in front of you here, and the face is pointing more down the line, you're gonna see a dramatic difference in your ability to keep the club face square, at least on the backswing. So I would say that's building block number one. By the way, guys, please make sure that you post any comments you may have. Go ahead and ask those questions, because here in just a minute, I'm gonna open up for Q&A. So go ahead and add those questions so they're all already queued up so that I can start answering those questions. So here we go again. So as we take this club back, create that width, keep that face down, and I think that's, like I said, that's building block number one. Building block number two is the top of the backswing. Most of my clients tend to struggle with rotation through their upper body or thoracic spine, if you want to get technical. So then what happens is instead, to complete that fuller backswing, they end up getting what I call arm sway. So instead of keeping the club in front of their chest, they go, okay, well, the club has to get up here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break my lead arm, and I'm going to fold my wrist a lot. Well, you can't hit a golf ball from that position. So here's what happens. When you don't create any width like this, and you do this, then you can't pull down straight into the golf ball, because you have spaghetti noodles and it just wouldn't work. So what ends up happening is you do this, and then you throw to get back into a better position, but that leads into scooping the golf ball. So then so how do we fix that? Well, I think the best way to fix that is to keep the arms in front of our chest, all right? And keep the right elbow in front of our body and not let it get retraction. Let me explain. So do your wide takeaway like this. From here, you're gonna keep turning, and when your body stops turning, so do your arms. This elbow, if you notice, is out in front of me. My shoulder hasn't retracted, and the elbow hasn't retracted, because you'll see what happens is the shoulder pulls back and the elbow pulls back behind me, and that's what creates arm sway, which then creates a throwing, casting, or scooping motion. So if you can do lots of pause reps where you go 1, so chunk it up, 2, feel this elbow stay out here in front of you, creating that width, letting the arm stay in front of your chest, and then hit golf balls. That'll help a lot. Tiger Woods used to do this drill all the time. He told Butch Harmon, he said, I hate this drill because it's so hard to make great contact doing it because it's a pause drill. But that's the only way you're going to make a meaningful change in your backswing is by doing pause reps. So the best way to work on this is chunk it up. So you're going to go 1, pause, make sure you get a good pause, and 3. And I want you to notice there, I can hit this 160 yards, and I only hit it 60 yards. So if I throw up the TrackMan screen up here, you're going to see that I only hit that 60 yards. Oh, let me take off the question thing so you can actually see what's going on there. I only hit that 60 yards. So I'll put up a little split screen view here so you can see. I'm going to hit a couple. If I can get a golf ball up here. So here we go again. You're going to go 1, 2, get a good pause, make sure the elbow's out in front of you, make sure you're not getting this arm sway like this, and then through, come through. I'm not swinging hard. As you get more comfortable with this, then you can start trying to swing a little bit harder. But until you get comfortable, until you can have video evidence that you're actually getting better, I wouldn't change, or I wouldn't start swinging harder. You just have to understand the brain's always going to make you go back to what it knows, and it knows how to get arm sway. So if you really want to keep the arms more out in front of you, and you want to stop scooping like this, then you're really going to have to break it down into segments and go slower and slower, and then build back up the speed as long as you're getting success. But as long as you're in failure mode, you keep failing, the more you go back to a normal speed, the more you're going to go back to your old movement patterns instead of these newer ones. So take it slow, all right? So we talked about takeaway. We talked about the top. Now let's talk about the last thing that I see. The last thing I see is scooping. So sometimes fixing the top, what we just talked about, will correct some of the scoop, but it usually never corrects it all. So the second problem I'm seeing is controlling the loft of this club at impact. So if you, I think you can see this. If I come right here and I lean the shaft back like this, which would be a scooping, you can see this leading edge right here. It's higher above the bottom of my hand, meaning that the leading edge of the club is going towards the ball first, which also means that you're exposing the low part of the face. So if you're exposing the low part of the face every single shot, you're going to lose a lot of distance because it's going to create a lot of spin. It's typically going to make the ball balloon, okay? Especially if you hit it high on the face, it's going to make it launch really high. So that's where you lose a lot of your distance. And you may get some blades and a lot more thin shots because you don't have enough of the face exposed, because instead of getting it like this, you have the leading edge exposed instead of more of the face exposed, because the more you lean it like this, the more the face is exposed. So we want to expose that face and actually create forward shaft lean. So then the next correction I'd like to see you do is start working on creating forward shaft lean. So this is by far my most favorite progression to work through. If you've ever been a client of mine, if anybody's watching here, this is one of my favorite progressions, and I think they would all say that it really works well. Takes time to change, but it works really well. So the first drill is a paddle drill, and this is teaching the lead arm how to move in the golf swing. So typically the lead arm doesn't actually accelerate. The hips and the chest sort of accelerates, but we end up throwing the club like this, and the hands end up on our back leg instead of right there, okay? So this paddle drill trains this lead arm to keep accelerating and get off the body instead of de-accelerating and then throwing and scooping the club. So what you're gonna do, get a really narrow stance here because we're not making a big swing. Go ahead and preset some forward shaft lean onto your left leg here. Put this hand on it like a paddle, so you're not gonna grip it. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna make little chip shot swings here to here. Now, here's how it works. This hand needs to remain on the club through the backswing, all the way up to impact, and then at impact, this hand will stop and this hand will extend on through. But the goal is to get this lead arm straight and not let there be a big L like this. We don't wanna see that, because if you did that, that means you threw the club and you scooped it. So we wanna make this finish in a straight line. Okay, so now it's sometimes hard to make great contact because it is a one-handed drill technically. So don't worry too much about contact, but what'll help you a lot is to look at video face on. And that video face on will show you that every time you do this drill, you almost can't mess it up. I haven't had anybody mess it up. You can create forward shaft lean. Okay, now, but remember, take the backswing really short. If you take it all the way back here, you may have time to scoop. But if you keep it real short right here, like below the belt line, and then you come through, you almost can't scoop, okay? So here we go again. Right here, take it back, through, and my arm finished just like this. So back, through, just like this. And you can almost create forward shaft lean every time, okay? But getting that feeling of that lead arm that it needs to keep moving is really, really important. Now, what you need to do from there is progression number 2, which is where this time you put your trail hand on it like normal, but you're gonna feel the paddle drill still happening. So what you're gonna do is put this hand on there now. You're gonna take a really short swing, but you're gonna feel this lead arm keep extending all the way to here. It can't stop at impact, and then finish with a straight line just like this. And you should be able to see this forward shaft lean at impact, which then should bring the trajectory down, which then will actually expose the middle of the club face now, because now you're not exposing the bottom of the face because you're tucking it under like this. I think it's actually a good angle. You can see it's tucking under like this and you're exposing the bounce too much. Now you're keeping it down. Now you're exposing more of the face. That's what we want. So then what I want you to do is hit a few shots where you're really working on compressing that ball with these little short swings. So go ahead and preset a little bit of forward press like so. Okay. And then what I want you to do is I want you to drive through the ball. So real short. And again, we want to make sure we finish like this, not with the big L, right? We don't want to go, I'll see this a lot. People get here and this hand won't accelerate, but this right hand will throw and we'll see this massive L. That's what creates a scoop. And that's why the paddle drill in my mind is so powerful. Now something else you can kind of mix in with this. You can do a right-handed only drill where you're going to try to take this separation between the forearm and the butt of the club right here, and you're going to try to keep that space there. Because if you scoop, it's going to move back towards your forearm. So what you can do is you can put your lead hand in your pocket. I like to set the body a little open to give us a little bit of a chance. But go ahead and preset that forward press under our lead leg. Take it back, through, and then maintain. Now you're going to notice the only way to maintain that is the chest has to rotate, because if the chest doesn't rotate, well, the club wants to keep going, so something has to give, and it's usually the bend in that wrist. So you really have to feel the body turn to feel that thing stay out like that, okay? So that'll make a big difference. So if you apply the paddle drill, that drill, the two-hand drill, and then start building it into your backswing, that's where you'll see all the results, is because you're building it backwards. But you have to start small and you have to use video, because if you don't use video, you're not going to be able to tell if you're getting it right or wrong, because video evidence is the only way to know if you're truly making meaningful change. So if you really want to know if you're making meaningful change, then look at video and work through these progressions. But those are the 3 different areas that I see the most where it causes the most problems. The takeaway, the top, and then impact. Downswing is a part of it, don't get me wrong, but I think those are the 3 main areas where I see the most inconsistencies. And we could mesh, and you want to mesh all those together. All right. So I want to talk about one more little thing here, and then I'm going to leave this open for questioning. I want people to ask some questions and let me know how I can best serve you. But when you practice, let's talk a little bit about practice real fast. The slower you go, the more meaningful change you can get. The faster you go, the more likely you're going to end up doing the old movement patterns. So if you really want to work on all 3 of these positions, I would chunk it up. It's called chunking practice. And then I would swing super slow and then build it backwards. But you got to use video. So here's what I would do. I would go 1, 2, 3, and feel the hands be forward. I didn't hit it great, but that wasn't the goal. The goal on video was to get in the right positions. So I'm going 1, 2, 3. And I'm making sure this finishes in a straight line, right? So let's do that one more time here. 1, 2, 3. All right. So if you practice that way, you'll see a dramatic difference in your ability to get it correct. And it's a grind at first. So the better practice is when you go to the driving range, instead of hitting 150 balls with a jumbo bucket, hit 20 to 25 balls in 1 hour. Now what that looks like is between every ball, you're making practice swings and you're looking at video. So it takes time to record, because you got to walk over there, set your camera down, hit record, walk back over there, hit the golf ball, walk back over there, look at the video. Then you scrub through the video. Then you go, was it right or wrong? And then you got to make some rehearses. Then you got to put the phone back on the tripod. Then you got to walk over there. My point is, it takes some time in between shots. And honestly, that's better practice because you're in the discovery phase of making new movement patterns. So if you'll go through that discovery phase appropriately and allow that to take maybe 1 to 3 weeks of the discovery phase, when you get out of the discovery phase, meaning that every time you look at video, what you're wanting to do actually happens on video. You're not having to correct it every time. Quit looking at video. It's that simple. So give that a shot. So I want to open this up for questioning. I got to walk over to my computer to hit some of these questions, but let's open this up for questioning real quick. All right, so explain in more detail what you mean by elbow out in front. Okay, so what I mean by elbow out in front is the position of this elbow. I guess it's better this way. The position of the elbow here, instead of it retracting behind us this way, we want the elbow to stay more in front of us. So go look at a couple of tour players. Look at guys like Colin Morikawa, I think Rory McIlroy, even some older videos of Tiger Woods. Most tour players, there's some exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There's always exceptions on tour, but what we want is we want this elbow to stay out in front of us this way instead of retracting back here. Because what happens is when you retract that elbow, you lose that width. Let me prove my point here. So if you go here and I keep the elbow out in front of me, I have this width. And width is the distance from my hands to my head. This is width. Okay? But as soon as I retract that elbow, you can see that now my hands are getting behind my head and I'm breaking this elbow and I'm losing all leverage to be able to control the club face. So that's what I mean by keeping the elbow more out in front of you instead of allowing it to get behind you. And you just do that because if you watch, this arm stays straight to here, and then to the top of the swing, the elbow just folds a little bit, but it doesn't retract. I think that's important. So take your right arm, keep it straight to here, and then from here, let it fold, but then keep the elbow out in front of you. Don't let it retract. And then put both hands on and go, okay, here, let it fold, but don't let it retract. That's what I mean by keeping the elbow in front of you. That'll help keep the club more in front of your chest, like this, instead of getting behind you like this. So like this would be in front of me because see, my chest isn't moving here. I'm just breaking my arms. But what you want to do is keep it in front of your chest the whole time and then be able to come through the ball. That'll help a ton. All right, there's another question here. All right, so does the ball position at setup with a long iron affect pure strike? Does the ball position at setup with a long iron affect pure strike? Yes, and if I understand your question appropriately, you know, everybody's a little different in ball position. I don't think there's one way to do it, but you got to understand what ball position does to the golf swing. So if I take a long iron, okay, so let me grab my, I'll grab my, I think you said 4-iron there. Yeah, 4-iron. So typically a 4-iron, the reason why you see more players put it in the front of their foot is because this club doesn't have a lot of loft on the club. So if you want to get it higher in the air and have a better opportunity, you give yourself a better opportunity by putting it more forward your stance because that gives you more time to add loft at impact. Because a 4-iron's not going to go very high in the air anyway. So I think if you have the ball too far back, I have seen that it can cause inconsistency problems because especially if you're trying to get it in the air. So the answer is if the ball's in the back of your stance and you're trying to get it in the air, well, what you're going to do is you're going to do a compensation because you're not changing ball position. You're going to make a compensation. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to scoop the ball to add loft and impact to hit it higher, which may work, but then you just lost all control of the club face. So what I would do is keep this, especially if you're trying to launch the ball higher, if that's what your problem is. Maybe leave another comment if that's not quite it. But make sure the ball position is not inside your left heel. That's where the driver should be, but about a ball to 2 balls ahead of the middle of your stance, and that'll make a difference. But it should, you know, your long irons versus your 7-iron shouldn't be harder to make great contact if you have appropriate body motions. Okay, if there's some things in your swing that's consistent to make consistent strikes. okay? But I don't think ball position by itself necessarily can cause that, but I have seen players try to hit it high, but with the ball in the middle of their stance, sometimes even back in their stance. So I'm like, okay, you're creating a wrong movement pattern on the downswing to try to get the ball up in the air when you could just move the ball forward in your stance. So if I'm understanding your question right, that's what I would do, is just make sure you have a consistent ball position. And most players in the world, I have some that are a little different. I actually have one college player. He plays every ball from one spot in his stance. It works. I don't think you have to play this stair-stepping. Now, he tends to hit his shorter irons a little higher, but he's cool with it, okay? And then you can change equipment for that too. But most golfers have, like a pitching wedge is middle to slightly back, and then as the clubs go forward, the ball position moves more forward in their stance to help get the trajectory up in the air. So, all right, so if there's any more questions, let me know. But I hope you like these live videos. Please share those with somebody. If you're not a subscriber of mine, please subscribe. Hit the like button. That really helps other people get to hear what I'm talking about and allow me to serve more people, because I love what I do and I just want to serve you all. So make sure to hit that thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to share this to any of your friends. I'm going to be posting the full live video, and then I'm actually going to break this live video up into smaller segments so it's a little bit more easy to watch and understand, so you don't necessarily have to watch the entire live. But if there's any more questions, let me look one more time. Nope, there's no more questions. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this live event. If you have any more questions, please email me. Please DM me. See you next time. Peace.